Conde non a ti rongé qui conde non a ti rongé zet ta parcher non a ta matro badal chakani no a karan or se no zinelo no a chara ni yo la meba na de ngoso ki trabe ngoso ki trabe ti ngo ti apeche bare o conde no a na murmur yimba snako to so porque rinyen chang do murmur to ridi tenen chang to so mo de ma yima mo so chame to to pitul jan ni tire ona kondo no roji de to ma ti tende ka no wa no shi ma to ba ta ni ki tende to na ni ki roji me ba to go me rinyen so to manda so rinyen ja ni ta trasha se no o ta to to dal mare Zamba Niri no di Yosa Tondalma, Kurustic, Telateni, Shasoti, Yukachuchi, Dember Metis, and Ronshi Traba Meti, Yuki Yimi Charas, and Ani Tony Drubi, Toxa to Drubi, Tayota Regmare, Pumba Yimi Chas and Regmare, Tendre Tom Yukatom, Tendre Yimi Char, Sugi Yimi Char. What so regular, wrongy no chain ola, any Zamba Chara, Niri Yuna, Chiji Yuna, Tepi Lujana, any Marago, Talapon and Rigre, or Tendre Nola, Zamba Chara, Chiji Yola, Tala Tendrus Yola, Jeda, Sasso de Nuki, Dembermati, Rosi, Nuki Yimi Charisana, or Tini. Jeta chochi chong dorji chong do dina ni no kondo no roji traba aksi ma to keji or te tinde ke chabare tan dile ma didin kondo nyugel ni jemba tobi on Zeni soto ma Zeni soto mandrago tomba so ma ne que ranger qui me ba tomba de Zeni soto mandrago ani mandra watati que yordan da wat de kale J'ai de combat, coup, Teo, Petoni, un chabar de Tao, Jimson, Nenga Kabatu Dores, Kono Ranger qui non à tête, Ranger qui condamne non à tête. Yumetala, Ocheta, Meba de la Carla, Tatas, Yume de las Chara Niri, Chidi Yume Chabares, or Chara Niri Chidi or Zunian Chidi or Mikala Chidi or Mara, Pambala Chidi or Mara, Tende to non c'è la CDO, Zulu CDO, tende che chabanda moji, some window, tende man rose.
Page 31. I think the above quotation is clear in its deliberations. The reason for those differences between the example and the exemplified is, I assume, because of the fact that the notion of something existing or not inherently, or existing or not as it appears, can be teased out into two respective levels, one gross and the other subtle. Here, when you get the syllogism or the reasoning as the sprout of the eastern location is empty and predicate is empty of true existence because it is dependent originated. So when we establish the the property of the object, property of the subject, the first mode, and then likewise when we established the provision that whatever is dependent originated is empty of true existence. So this true existence, empty of true existence, that we understand as a predicate, as indicated earlier, has to be understood as empty of how the objects appear to you, or it as is translated here, empty of the nature it appears to have, empty of how the object appears to us. So this is how it works. And now for the provision, that anything which is dependent originated is empty of how it appears to us. When you cognize this, should one cognize emptiness? The answer is not necessary, because that the dependent origination, on the basis of dependent origination, there are two levels of deception. On the level on dependent origination, we can cognize that it is empty of being how it appears to us, how it appears to our mind. There is one is gross, one is subtle. So the manner in which we see the reflection in the mirror as dependent originated, and also as empty of being how it appears to you. So that is the gross one. It has the gross, and also it has the subtle one. But if you understand that the reflection of the mirror being dependent originated, and because of being dependent originated, how it is empty of being how it appears to our mind, the gross one, that it appears as the one with the protrusion of your nose and so forth. This is not true. This very gross one, this is how we see the emptiness of the object, the way it appears to our mind, on the basis of the dependent origination, on the basis of the reflection of the mirror. So in other words, dependent origination has the two levels of the understanding, the subtle and the gross one, of the emptiness of how the object appears to us. So likewise, the form, we can say that the sprout of the location to the east, or in other words, the sprout as object, is empty of true existence, because it is a form. Physical form is a form. Again, we see that on the basis of the form, there is the subtle and the gross level of deception. Both are there on the form also, on dependent origination also, because we can use these two as the reasons or the signs to prove the sprout, which is the topic, to be empty of true existence. Whereas if you say the sprout of the eastern direction is empty of true existence because it is sprout, then this does not hold true as a reasoning, because then in which case you have, when you cognize the position that whatever is a sprout, whatever is sprout should necessarily be empty of true existence. So there you have to cognize emptiness, and then you will not get the example, and you have to know the emptiness on the sprout. And then it is like they say the cognizing the provision, that suffices. Cognizing the provision in this context, the sprout of the eastern direction is empty of true existence because it is a sprout. Then when you cognize the provision, you already cognize the emptiness of the sprout, and then that is where there's where the flaw comes into being, for the reason that the valid reason should be such that when you cognize any of these three the modes, still there should be room for the individual not to have cognized the main thesis or prebendum, the main thesis. So with this, for this reason, say this proud as the topic is empty of true existence because it's dependent originated. It is like a reflection in a mirror. That's perfect. As proud as the topic, it is empty of true existence because it is a form. Again, you can recognize these three modes on the basis of the reflection in the mirror. And reflection mirror is a form, plus it has the two levels of and the understanding of the emptiness of true existence. So with this, we have to know what is applicable as what is validly to be posited as sign, and what doesn't hold true, what doesn't hold as a valid sign is what we need to identify. So now the point is that for establishing emptiness newly or freshly, there should be no contradiction of the contradiction where one understands the provision, the main thesis should not be established. So this is how it works. Whereas if you cognize the provision and the main thesis is established, then the purpose is not fulfilled. A purpose not fulfilled, and the reason will not become a good valid reason.
soba chu shela yan chipa chichole dravi te rongi dember travanyo no zamba rongi la yoba ani nyongwa ka chole je ka jogu mare ti kar cher ani cher diwa nishin Tadi chaya to carries a chair deputy, the Ronshiki Trabato, Rongini Trabato, only Dember Trabato, the Mombo, the chair dishoto, Tanda Ronsu Tobaseta, Ronsu Tobusiate, oh, teacher Divadus and Gatan, Chair Divan, Rongi Nashi, Stashi Nashi Rabchi, Nyarship, no. Then a pencil stay goopy na rolla to Ronji Ronji Yoba Mabdembi to Tishango Demba Yoba said roller to Ronji Yona Demba Mana Mudemba to Tishango or that teacher dig those to talk Ronsu Tom gets a yomayota. She the from covered nishes, take up the pena, still, disturb the disturb pena, still go only never the minigia ya still go yak never to petisha, Ronsumatosiat. Tichiton, Jatsuton, Namkak, Strange Pomboton, La so Strange Pombola, Soba, or two Lasso Bas, Lasso, Rosut, Matot, Gender, Jitin, Rongawa, Ronsu, Jasola, Jatsu. Jaso don straight son ronsu matab kutu ronsu taba maras jikte ronga hago jikte ronga wala trapa Traba Geshe, Detoship Mare, Daton, Dashiton, Dashiton, and only Kunto, Kocham the Tongato, Rontu Taba Yusat, what to you, Mutaba Chipandu, last Soba, Rontu Mato, Rontu Taba, no, I. No, Shemba, when Zambayo, Ronsi Thomas, Rongela, Yobas, take Susuga Jella Tanichi Yobata, and the Ronsi Tonkachi, yes, also Yobate, Rongela Yobas, and Chason, son tons, and them Dosato, she does Rongela Yoba, Shenka Jongo Mare, and Chon the Lichis taken to an old Charlotte, the Lichi Solan, the Lichi, Otundo, Shidon, the control that Javaton go Haku would was. Chesa, Tachuru Jella, Rossi Tonkin, is also urgent as a taken to all two danger territories. That Javaton got it and a Noy Troves and Tara, till Stagger Joguma, and was so good Troves and I'm into Noy Travais. Oh yeah, da travel rotu da jwa tamji yobar ko thabi ngani ko thabi yogi from rotis yogi rosi dalan rosi nju roti rotsar tita Titaro, Nyamos, Tarosi Matosiata, Debatraban, the Minzabato, Rogele Yoba, New Trosiata, Debatraban, Zayata, Rositaban, Zayata, Tire, Tachuro Savile Trinity, the Yudus, or Tene, Dochati, the Matan Dochara, Zidor, Til Susu Jeli Yoba, New Trodua, Tito Chipa, Tane, Dajon, Lausa Haku Rens, take a New Trosi. Oh yeah, then that's the man was on.
Okay, page 31, in the middle, they claim that the reflection being grasped as intrinsically existent and that such grasping exists within our continuum, mental continuum, is experientially established, applies equally to phenomena such as the sprouts and others. Here, as to the fact that we have the grasping a true existence of the phenomena and the person, that is, how do we know that this is there within us? It is to be, this is what we can know experientially. And the fact that this is what is happening within us, we don't need somebody else to tell us that there is such a grasping true existence within you, and then give reasonings. No need. This is what you can experientially know, and you may wonder, how does it happen? So here, first we need to have the understanding of what the intrinsic existence is. And intrinsic existence is existing in and of it, in and from itself, and existing as truly real. And what is the one thing which is the very easy for us to know, or what they mean, what these three vocabularies mean. Intrinsic existence, existing from its own side, or existing truly, they say the existing by way of one's own self-sustenance, or existing by the power of one's own support, through one's own support, or through one's own existence. This is what is being said here by Lama Tsongkhapa. It reads, I think a very convenient way of picturing this is captured in chapter 24 of Lama Tsongkhapa's exposition of the treatise on the middle way, where it says that it has a self-sustaining nature, is not visible because it must exist interdependently. Self-sustaining nature, or something which exists through one's own power, or by one's own support. this is easier to be understood. And it reads, a big example such as a deceased person or requiring an escort or helper, the rainbow colors, and the cloud formations lacking in self-sustaining capacity or self-supporting capacity is known to ordinary beings. So these are the examples where we see that a person who needs the support of somebody else when walking, a sick person, and then the rainbow and the cloud formation, so they don't exist as a self-sustaining entity. They don't exist as a self-supporting entity. It's something which even the ordinary people they know. Similarly, so these are examples. Similarly, persons, buildings, etc., are also not self-sustaining, although they appear to us as existing that way. They appear to be existing as self-sustaining entity, and we carry such grasping. We also believe, we also grasp, we also apprehend that these things like person, the buildings, and so forth exist as self-sustaining entity, as intrinsically real, or as self-sustaining entity. This is within us, within our continuum, just as we carry attachment and hatred within us. So, when the attachment, hatred, and these thoughts, these emotions arise in us, we experientially know that okay, now there's a feeling of hatred, there's a feeling of attachment coming in me. And the experienced one knows that you do not require anybody else to tell you that okay, you have these emotions as attachment, anger, and so forth. This is the reason. No, you don't need any reason. It's you experientially you know that. At times you may need somebody else to give a label to this. So likewise, so without the need of anybody else to prove that the ordinary beings like us, we have the self-grasping ignorance, or we have the grasping at the entities or things to be existing as a self-sustaining, as a unit, self-sustaining entity. Even without somebody, even without the need for anybody to explain that to us, you can experientially know that. So first you identify what the objective existence is or self-sustaining entity is, and how that is not possible with these examples, and yet they appear like this, and you know that they don't exist like this. And then the same understanding you have on the basis of the examples, you apply this to the person, the building, and so forth, and then you experientially you get a feeling that okay, they also are seen as so self-sustaining entity there, or as objective real there, as a self-sustaining entity there. And then somebody else, okay, do you have the same, this feeling coming to you that these things are self-sustaining entity? You will say, yes, this is known as self-grasping ignorance. At the most, you may need somebody else to just give the label. Otherwise, the referent of this label, you have experiential understanding that it is actually happening within me. Okay, continuing from page 32, it reads, pointing at them through words and descriptions. So somebody else may simply apply the label to us that what you experience now, this is known as self-grasping ignorance. Words and descriptions will alert us to the existence within us, existence of this self-sustaining entity, existence of the grasping at the self-sustaining entity within us, and that is what is being referred to as recognizing the existence of the self-grasping ignorance, or recognizing the existence of the grasping at the self-sustaining entity experientially within us, I think. And okay, so the how with these emotions, as indicated earlier, how with the emotions of the attachment and so forth, you have the experiential understanding that it is there within me, now it is arising within me. So this is how you apply this to the same, say the recognition of things, or apprehension of things to be having a self-sustained entity. And then at the most somebody may help you to say that this experience is known as the grasping at the self-sustaining entity or intrinsic existence.
아니 Geshe 다티 뇨이 좀나 아니 돈이 마토 거니 제타티 가자도 켄조고로 가자도 또 아니 가자도 또 켄조와도 그러면 가자 멤버 그러 여바더니 수수치 타고 그러면서 어떤데 저거 하고 고 타는 제 때니 저를 여바도 로시지 여바도 여비 로시 타바니 가자 케비 아니 몰라는 아니 태비 있던데 개고를 태비 있던데 아니 대니 소소 치지요 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 봐 저는 태비 그때인데 근데 그다 치지요 되니 아니요 로제가 나서야 또 같이 도서야 되니 아니 치지요 이제 하고 그거를 하고 타면 치타고 말을 뭐야 저는 돌아 띠 소소이 치타바나 다티니 소소 치타야다 돈이 또비 오는 가자 기체이 오는 맛도 용거 말을 치지 여바 등에니 하고 그래서 어때네 타바나 저절에 버니 키비 지스 고고 지스 마스톤 아니 마토 원서 가르잖아 마토 모모서 송비 레버 또 레버 고고 바스노소 어제자 가자 치지 여바면 또 치마 타면서 치지 여바도 따뜻한 앞에도 때문에 뭐 시시지 시무고 되는 뭐 제로는 그렇게 야보만 통다
Now that the identifying the grasping to existence, identifying it, the presence of this, identifying the presence of the grasping to existence within one's own mind, if that is what you can do experientially, then the question is whether or not one can distinguish the what is to be negated and what is not to be negated. For example, like the sprout and the self-sustaining nature of the sprout. Can we distinguish the two? Can we separate the two? This question. So the answer is that you do have the experiential knowledge of the presence of the grasping of the true existence of the object or the grasping of the self-sustaining entity of the object. But from this, we do know, by means of the example, we do know that they do know the possibility of separating these two, the object and the self-sustaining nature of the object. That the possibility of that one can segregate the two, one can separate the two, is there, can be known on the basis of the example. So which means that we do know that with the sprout, for example, the sprout and the self-sustaining nature of the sprout or the true existence of the sprout versus a sprout, can we then separate the two intellectually or cognitively? Can you separate the two? Answer is we know that these two can be separated, but we cannot separate at that moment before we realize emptiness. Okay, likewise the self, I versus the self-sustaining nature of the I, or so these two things, we know that these two things can be separated, but we cannot separate at that moment. Can be separated, but can we do it at that moment? Can we actually separate the two to identify these two things so clearly that self exists, the self-sustaining nature of the self does not exist? Can we separate in ways that the self is posited and the others rejected? Can we do that? We cannot do that till the point of realizing emptiness. So till that point, we cannot separate the two. We know that the two can be separated. We cannot, but there is the feature there where these two can be separated. Okay, the text reads, theoretically speaking, the two, that is the existence of the base, the object, any object, and its status of being existing inherently or established in a self-sustaining way, are feasible. The possibility that the possibility to be teased out, to be separated out, on the base of an example, even before the object of negation has been refuted. However, it is taught that the actual action of teasing, actual separation of these two, teasing them out on a base, any object, is only possible in the wake of having cognized the thesis. That is emptiness, and thesis, that is emptiness, and not that one can actually tease these two things apart before the reality of emptiness. So there is a need for fully appreciating this distinction as well, and there are many the examples that we can give, but no need of it for now.
Da Dio Shita Da Pejan Dio Shidons Tapo La Oronso Matot Jobana Shidon de la Ronso Matot de Ronso Tomala Joe Teni Mess and Magoas the Shidon de Ronso Tomala and the Cora Ronso Maton said the Golo Teni Man said Mago Coco Mares. Yeah, Teni Mapper Mago Jejula Teni about Shujiko, yeah, Ronso Maton Zel Teni about the Shujiko Tongues. Money does Zela Teni you said Jubanas. Me Messoto Sarashito combato to Dozela Teni de Yola Color Ronso Matanka de you, shoot your congress. Or Tugger. Rolla two Ronso Matot Sar Gaza Ronso Tabat de maybe Shuji only Kotabes Tombaton. Tension, Rotter Lions, Quad Labor Tower Nose, Cheta, the young Kendra into number Marula something, Tendre in Chelsea and about the Yuva to go any Roshi man said to Gola, tending about the shoot you go dead the Goli Carbon. Ronsi Togo Mare, Tabadio Mare said to Gola. Ya, Danshel, Tenny Yusi Adama, also Kotan, tell the desert, Tom Martin Jones, dangerous Tommy Tonsi at the Kotariana, dead Koa Divan Chang Dos.
Okay, next is the how understanding of the emptiness of intrinsic reality in the context of emptiness of self-sustaining entity, how that has a great benefit is that the text reads, the last line of page 32, when someone speaks of, say, a tree to be not self-sustaining, we do not take it to mean that the tree is totally non-existent. Non-sustaining, when I say that, or that the tree cannot support itself, the tree cannot sustain itself. When I say that, instantly we get the implicit understanding that, oh, it does exist by dependence on other factors. It does not imply the non-existence of the tree altogether. It implies that the tree, which means that it exists, it is not self-sustained, but it's sustained by other factors. So dependent origination is inferred. And whereas when you say dependent origination, or the tree is dependent originated, again instantly it will inform us that it does not have a self-sustaining mechanism or self-sustaining entity. So this is how I say the emptiness of self-sustaining entity and dependent origination. Usually what we have is emptiness of intrinsic existence and dependent origination to mean the same. So how these two inform each other. And so whereas this understanding of the emptiness of self-sustaining entity versus dependent origination, when you see these two things by one understanding, it automatically informs dependent origination, and understanding dependent origination automatically informs the absence of self-sustaining entity. So this is how we can see the emptiness and dependent origination to be mutually mutually meaning the same. Okay, the text reads, page 32, last line. When someone speaks of, say, a tree to be not self-sustaining, we do not take it to mean that the tree is totally non-existent. Rather, we tend to understand that to imply that the tree exists dependently. Likewise, when someone speaks of the tree or the house and so forth to exist in dependence upon others, we understand to imply its non-self-sustaining way of existence. In that, the self-sustaining way of existence is being refuted. This seems to lend itself to the notion that emptiness and dependent origination adequately inform each other. And usually there is the understanding of how the emptiness of intrinsic existence and dependent origination to mean the same. I personally find it little challenging as compared to the emptiness of self-sustaining entity with independent origination, where the emptiness of self-sustaining entity versus dependent origination is easier in a mind to see that these two are mutually informing, are mutually to mean the same thing, as synonymous in that sense.